Aerodrome found major success on Base, but Ethereum Mainnet is a much more crowded and established market already dominated by Uniswap.
Ethereum Mainnet is the birthplace of DeFi. It is the network that has by far the most total value locked, the most capital locked in the DeFi ecosystem. It is also one of the leading networks still by volume, by fees. We have seen that success that you mentioned on Velodrome and Optimism, and then Aerodrome on Base, this new protocol Aero that will join the best of Velodrome and Aerodrome into a single protocol network, a single sort of liquidity layer. It will be able to also dominate on Ethereum Mainnet. It can double overall the trading activity that we are seeing right now on Aerodrome, and also allow Aero to demonstrate that this model is really the winning model for DeFi.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lorena Nessi from CCN, and today I'm joined by Luis de la Cerda, Executive Director of the Aerodrome and Velodrome Foundations. We will discuss Aerodrome's expansion into Ethereum Mainnet, the growing competition, prediction markets inside DeFi, and AI trading systems in DeFi exchanges. Hello, Luis Alberto. Nice to see you, and welcome to CCN.
Hi, Lorena. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, you too. So we're going to start with our very first question. We know that Aerodrome found major success on Base, but Ethereum Mainnet is a much more crowded and established market already dominated by Uniswap. So what does the team believe Aero can compete there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so Ethereum Mainnet is the birthplace of DeFi. It is the network that has by far the most total value locked, the most capital locked in the DeFi ecosystem. It is also one of the leading networks still by volume, by fees, which are the critical sort of metrics that we look at when assessing the potential for a decentralized exchange, being sort of like the hub for token trades and token swaps. And we have seen that success that you mentioned on Velodrome and Optimism, and then Aerodrome on Base. Both of these protocols have been able to dominate their networks. In any chains they have been deployed, because Velodrome is present in other chains beyond Optimism, across the Optimism Superchain, including Ink and others, and also Aerodrome on Base. In each chain, they have been able to dominate the volumes and the trading. And so the thesis behind this new protocol Aero that will join the best of Velodrome and Aerodrome into a single protocol network, a single sort of liquidity layer, is that it will be able to also dominate on Ethereum Mainnet, which today represents, I want to say maybe 10 times higher TVL than Base last I checked, maybe a little bit more. And in terms of volume, at least as much volume as Base, slightly more as well. So it can double overall the trading activity that we are seeing right now on Aerodrome, perhaps even more, maybe double or triple the trading activity total of the protocol, and also allow Aero to demonstrate that this model is really the winning model for DeFi. So that is definitely the expectation that we have, and we're very excited about that.
Oh, wow. And apart from increasing the trading volume, are there any further changes once Aerodrome moves from Base directly into Ethereum Mainnet?
There are definitely. So I mentioned that Aero is going to be present across several chains. So users of the platform are going to be able to swap tokens across different chains without having to leave the app. This is one of the bigger ones. So it's going to be these apps. I mean, these trades are going to be running through what we call the meta lane, and sort of like the key name is the meta swaps. People are going to be able to trade tokens across chains without changing apps, right? They won't have to go to bridges anymore. And another major change is what we are calling predictive allocation. So those holders of today VE Aero or VE Velo will receive the new standard, which we're calling S-Aero, staked Aero. It is going to be a very similar design in that token, if you're a token holder, if you hold Aero, you're going to be able to stake it for a period of time. You can choose the time allocated, so up to 4 years. The longer the time span, the more essentially allocation power you have, or voting power. And today, as a VERO holder, you vote every week in what we call epochs. Once a week, you vote on which pools receive Aero emissions, and in return, you receive the trading fees or token incentives from that pool. Going forward with S-Aero, what holders are going to be doing is they're going to allocate the same sort of like governance power to different pools, but now they are going to predict which pools are going to receive the fees, because the fees or the revenue overall for these pools is going to be distributed live. Instead of happening on a weekly time frame, it's going to be live. So if you believe the wrapped ETH, BTC pool is going to outperform, as an allocator, you'll go, or as an S-Aero holder, you go and allocate your power to that pool. And then as fees start coming in, you're going to receive those fees as rewards for doing so. And so this changes a little bit the dynamics. You can still sort of like look at historical results and see, okay, this pool tends to do pretty well, so I'm just going to go with this one. Or you can have a view of like, well, I believe, Venice AI, for example, on Base have been doing really well in recent weeks. So you might think, well, I believe it is going to outperform next week, so I'm going to go ahead and allocate my governance power to VVV, which is called the token VVV pool, and then that way I can maybe outperform other voters and get more rewards than I would have otherwise. So again, now as an S-Aero holder, you're going to be able to switch at any given moment your allocation, your decision on which pools receive Aero emissions, and in return for that, sort of like that projection that you have, you're going to receive rewards for doing so. And maybe just to also, in case anybody's worried that they're going to have to be on top of everything, we're also going to make sure that there's going to be some automation ready for at launch, where you can just delegate your allocation and be like, well, just give me the average. I'm fine with whatever is the average reward, and just give me that. I don't want to do the work. Let others do the prediction. I'm fine with whatever the Aero system delivers to me. So there's going to be some tooling as well for those that prefer to just set and forget.
Brilliant. These are definitely exciting changes. And this predictive allocation sounds quite unique to me. So tell me, what problem is the team trying to actually solve with this model? And why do you think those systems make sense inside decentralized exchanges?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the key problems is that, it's like a chicken and egg problem, where like you need liquidity on chain for trading to happen, with proper execution, for traders to be able to use the platform and trade tokens. And so sometimes you get cases where there is a token that is gaining activity, it's gaining attention, but there's not enough liquidity for it to trade. So by creating this system as an S-Aero holder, you're going to be able to kind of support liquidity before the trading activity happens. So you're going to be able to kind of enable the economic activity on chain. So this allows for the chicken egg, the cold start problem, as it's called, to be solved for liquidity. And at the same time, it overall increases the efficiency of the protocol itself at a broad level, because today, by doing these, the weekly epochs are pretty efficient. They're pretty good at matching which pools, are generating revenue and which pools are getting Aero rewards. But now with this sort of more live streaming type model, the matching of revenue to rewards is going to be much more tight. So the protocol is going to be able to be much more efficient in its use of token rewards for liquidity providers, and in capturing the revenue that it should be capturing for enabling this liquidity.
Great. And the project has also connected predictive allocation with AI agents and automated on-chain trading. So how do you think AI could change the way liquidity moves through these DeFi markets?
Yeah, this is also another great question. It just makes sense that going forward, as AI tooling continues to improve, as these models continue to get better at actually making investment decisions, financial decisions, they're going to be able to be the most efficient because they don't stop, right? They're working all the time. So they're going to be the most efficient allocators of liquidity, of votes, of rewards. And so we are going to build the tooling to make sure that when the time comes, and it's still pretty early, but when the time comes, agents will be able to do the work on behalf of token holders and on behalf of liquidity providers to essentially find the most efficient path to, one, provide liquidity to use a capital in the most efficiently way possible, get the most yield out of their tokens. And also, if they are participating in the S-Aero system, to choose the pools that will get the most rewards. And it's a win-win, right? Like as if the system is choosing the pools that generate the most revenue and directing Aero tokens to those pools and building up liquidity, then it's essentially going to be able to dominate the pools that are the more valuable to an exchange, right? The pools that generate the most trading fees, the most revenue, and therefore essentially be kind of like as efficient as possible and just capital allocation across the different layers of the DEX.
We have these trading systems, with bots and infrastructure that seems to get increasingly more complex, right? With bots and algorithms and AI all competing basically for the same objective. They have the same objective in mind. So do you think that makes markets more efficient, or do you think it makes participants harder to compete since they have to probably try to understand the system itself? Or do the bots do the work for them? How does it work?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of both. I think with any kind of market, there's always some adaptability that is required. So it's not enough to, sort of like do the math. You also have to adjust to everybody else doing the math. Market systems have to be increasingly efficient. And so today there's still many ways in which, you can participate, as a liquidity provider, as a token holder, whatever it is. Sometimes it can be simply by delegating. And this is the goal of the tooling that we want to build, where like you can actually leverage these systems without you having to be the one that decides the bots, right? You can just maybe get Aero, lock it as S-Aero, or stake it as S-Aero, and then delegate it to bots that somebody else builds up, and then compare the different bots, how they're performing, and then maybe choose from one to the other. We're not going to be calling them bots. It's more going to be vaults where you can, delegate your S-Aero. And these sort of like differences are on the margin, right? Like if you are an S-Aero holder, you're going to be fine, choosing one or the other, because the difference is going to be smaller between the APR that one generates and the APR that another generates. I think it's much more about making it easy and accessible to everyone. And even as these systems continue to be efficient, there's still going to be ways in which you can, just participate again by delegating. Same thing in the liquidity side. If you're a liquidity provider today, we're trying to make it as easy as possible for you to provide liquidity, including these new type of pools called, concentrated pools that require you to choose a price range. We try to provide as much information as possible in a simple way so that you understand, okay, if I provide liquidity, this is how much APR I can receive, this is the yield, and and this is sort of like what I need to do to do so. So yes, as sort of like more algorithms, more bots participate, there are gonna be sort of like an increasing competitiveness. So I wouldn't recommend that anybody tries to, become an arbitrager, for example. If you try to do arbitrage trading, you really need to have very complex and advanced and sophisticated systems to be able to outcompete. Otherwise, you might actually end up losing money. But in a system like S-Aero, where you can essentially delegate, you are going to be able to participate without having to worry about being the one designing the AI systems themselves or the bot systems themselves.
Great. Okay. So, well, before going into more about Aero and also the foundation, which I'm very interested to talk about, I'd like to ask you about this debate about DeFi. right? Aerodrome benefited from open source DeFi infrastructure, but critics later actually accused the project of moving toward more restrictive licensing. So how does the team respond to concerns that parts of DeFi might be becoming less open source and maybe more commercially protected?
Yeah, so we are absolute believers in decentralized systems. We believe they are the future. And in fact, I personally strongly believe we're going to see this in the AI era, where decentralized systems are going to be, open and available for agents to use. We're starting to see already some of that happening. And eventually, I think they really are going to take off, where like agents will come in and use decentralized systems because they are open and accessible, and anybody can participate. From our point of view, we also need to make sure that we can develop that technology, and that we have we have sort of like at least some kind of guarantee from our side that our work can actually continue to be developed without somebody else coming in and just kind of taking over and using the technology that we developed. That is why we put some constraints around our smart contracts, but we are completely open to integrating with other teams, with bringing teams on board. In fact, we work with several teams that have integrated Aerodrome and Velodrome infrastructure into their own apps and have leveraged what Aerodrome and Velodrome have developed in their ecosystems to also build tooling on top, like aggregators or, sort of automating tools that, again, leverage the system that we have developed, but use it in their own ways. And we will continue to do that. Like I mentioned, kind of develop the tooling so that others can also benefit, because we think it is a win-win. Collaborating across DeFi is what makes DeFi, have this vitality, right? And, from lending protocols to decentralized exchanges to aggregators and bridges, we all win if the ecosystem keeps improving. So we are strong believers in decentralized finance. We are strong believers in open systems. Our contracts are immutable. They're accessible to anybody. Anybody can read them. They're public. So, we will continue to develop in that way. And our engineering team they're very, very strong advocates of this type of work system and design system. So yes, we are definitely pro decentralized ecosystems.
Great. And there are other controversial topics like token launches or liquidity wars or other incentive systems, that can shape crypto markets. So do you think that the current decentralized exchange model needs something like a major reform or a major change?
I would not say a major reform, but we definitely need to keep improving the systems. We need to make them as easy as possible to be used. As we continue to work with more institutional players, we need to strike a balance between providing a service that they can use with their regulatory constraints while also keeping the ecosystem open and vibrant. And these are sort of like key issues that we will continue to develop. And again, sort of like we need to improve the performance of decentralized exchanges. We are competing with, with apps or with platforms that are using centralized systems, which can run in a faster way sometimes because they can use centralized servers. But we continue to believe that this is the way that you build for the future. And again, building for a future where the digital economy really takes off, and digital infrastructure is used by new systems. And I think AI is going to be the one that proves it out. But I wouldn't say necessarily we need to make, we need a huge reform, but we do need to keep improving. We cannot stop where we are now, because there are still, a lot of users, when they come to DeFi, they still struggle to really get a hang of how things can be done. How can they actually play a role? So as we continue to develop our own technology, make sure that we can continue to give access to those that want to have access to the apps that we're building.
Brilliant. And tell us, Luis, what is the actual role of the foundations, of Velodrome and Aerodrome Foundations?
Yeah, the key of the foundations are here to be stewards of the protocols, to essentially continue to support their growth. For example, our flagship program for Aero, when it launches, and we already implemented some of this with Aerodrome, is called the Momentum Fund. What the Momentum Fund does is it has currently a VE Aero position that it uses to do a few things. One is vote on pools that have a lot of potential to grow. So, for example, new launches. It supported when CBBTC, Coinbase's BTC version on Base launched. The foundation was able to support liquidity for that pool by voting on that pool early on and make sure that the liquidity was strong enough to enable trading activity. So that's one. It's supporting pools that have high potential for the protocol itself. Then the voting rewards that the foundation receives, it directs 100% of that value back into the ecosystem to continue supporting its growth. The way it does that is through buybacks. But buybacks that do not just kind of like immediately buy back the token, but rather wait for, because we know that, the ecosystem has volatility. So it waits for when the token may be, sort of like discounted relative to historical averages, and buys at a relatively lower level based on historics, and then holds on and not buying when it's actually at a high level relative to recent history. So we call it market-aware buybacks. With Aero, it's going to do that, but also be able to buy back S-Aero, so locked positions into what do we call a VNFT marketplace, where same thing, it's going to wait for the right discounts and then buybacks there. So increasing the liquidity for locked positions while supporting the token economy itself. And the third way in which the foundation supports the overall ecosystem is by bringing partners on board and helping them gain from the growth of Aero. So we have a program where we can delegate some of these VE Aero rewards to developers or developing teams so that they can benefit from any growth on, if they're developing tooling for Aerodrome or helping us work on some of the coding or math or whatever it is, analytics, they can receive some of the fruits of their efforts. So the foundation will continue to focus on that, essentially delivering as much value to the protocol as possible. And as we say, just being stewards for the protocol's growth and make sure that it is a position for the long term, which we see, we still believe we're very early, especially in decentralized systems. And that is the goal of the foundation, to sort of set the protocol into that long-term trajectory.
Brilliant. So 5 years from now, Luis, does the team actually believe that most crypto trading will happen through decentralized exchanges rather than centralized platforms like Coinbase or Binance?
That would be amazing if it happened. It is tricky to make that prediction because, again, centralized systems are very easy to use. They have a lot of users. But what I definitely believe is that a lot of really pivotal, crucial economic activity will happen directly on chain. Again, I think the AI agentic era is going to surprise a lot of people where they are. It just makes sense that they're going to come. The agents are going to be able to leverage the systems that we're building to make payments, to transact with each other, to hire services. And so maybe the tokens themselves may continue to be traded on centralized exchanges because tokens, they have attracted a lot of users, and on-chain is a little bit harder to use. But for the agentic era, I would actually make that prediction. I believe that in 5 years, agents are going to be more active on-chain than they will be on any other platform.
Brilliant. Well, we look forward to seeing that. Thank you so much, Luis, for joining us today at CCN.
Thank you so much, Lorena. I really enjoyed the conversation.